Here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 3 o'clock. What's up, my friends? Chad here. The Blazers faced the best team in the East last night and come up short 122-111, 27 points and 8 assists for Darius Garland. Evan Mobley had a double-double. Donovan Clingan was awesome. 18 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks, 18 apiece for Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. Coach Billups after the game.
I mean, absolutely. Like I said, that's why I talked about the good things that we did. We did so many good things in this game. We fought our butt off. That team is better than we are. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference, maybe the best in the league, who knows, but we played our butts off. We made them work for it.
All right, next up, the Trailblazers begin a 5-game road trip tomorrow night in Sacramento. Tip-off at 7. Our coverage will start with the Blazers game day at 5. And don't forget, every Trailblazers game streams live on our iHeartRadio app. From the NFL, Russell Wilson signs a 1-year deal with the Giants. And the Vikings say J.J. McCarthy as QB1 is what they want. Rip City Drive's coming up next. Dwight Janes at 3:20. Sean Highkin in studio at 4. And Brad Barbick at 5:20.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing.
Okay, so you and Michael at a good spot.
Who, me and Michael?
Jordan?
Yeah, we're in a good spot. We don't talk.
Why not, you think?
Because I'm still playing. I think I'm still playing. I'm still focused on my craft right now.
When you're done, you think you two will be the
I
only two that can have a conversation?
I would hope so. I think it's because I'm still playing. You know, and MJ's, we all know MJ. Even if you don't know him personally, he's one of the most ruthless competitors there is. And till I'm done, and he doesn't have to look at me run up and down wearing the number 23, and every time my name is mentioned with his, he's like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, I want to golf course.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
Well, like usual, LeBron James trying his best to be liked by everyone and trying to rewrite history so people like me would believe that he is better all-time than MJ, which, of course, he's not. But once again, a great job by McAfee. McAfee's awesome. I saw my buddy Joe Fortenbaugh compare him to Howard Stern, where he gets people to open up and discuss things they wouldn't normally discuss. I agree with that. McAfee's awesome. His show is great. It's a very laid-back atmosphere, and athletes feel comfortable with him because, well, he is them. He was an athlete. And he's not your typical radio host, so always a great job by McAfee. What's going on, my friends? Rip City Drive, Chad Dewing here. It's kind of nice to have a break in all of the ridiculous Trailblazer action. I am in the middle of 41 straight days of work without a break, so I'm really enjoying it. But it's nice to have a break in the action, so we have a full show. The Godfather, Dwight Janes, is going to join me coming up at 3:20. I want to bring him on so we can continue to clarify the structure of how the Diamond Project is trying to get a new stadium built. For some reason, people in the media and people around the city don't seem to understand. It's not new taxes that's going to pay for the baseball stadium. It's not. So the Godfather will clarify. I also want to talk with him about this nonsense that was put out by Seth Greenberg in regards to Dan Hurley, the head coach at UConn. Look, Dan Hurley, he is basically Troy Taylor at Stanford. The only difference is that he wins, Taylor didn't, and therefore he got fired. But Hurley is just an a-hole. That's all. You know, he's an immature a-hole, and he's allowed to get away with that because he wins. And he won back-to-back championships. And in sports, when you win, people will put up with a lot of nonsense. But Hurley, as great of a coach as he is, and he's a great coach, he's just immature. And he's got to learn at some point to get himself under control. But this idea that somehow the tunnel is sacred ground, that is absolute nonsense. And I know that because I'm in the tunnel all the time at Moda Center before and after games. There's nothing sacred about the tunnel. And it smells in there too. You get a mix of like popcorn, BO, and like old ass. That's what a tunnel is at a basketball game. It's not sacred at all. A locker room is sacred. A tunnel is not. So Seth Greenberg trying to defend Dan Hurley and his ridiculous actions is absurd. The tunnel is sacred. Get out of here. There's some things that I look at or you see, and you know, you get older or you have experience with something, you see a comment, you're like, that's not even remotely close to true. The tunnel's sacred? I got your tunnel right here. There's nothing sacred about it. So, yeah, people just need to stop defending it. Why can't we just admit, hey, Dan Hurley is an a-hole. He's immature, but he's really good at his job and he wins a lot. Therefore, he's going to continue to be employed and make a heck of a lot of money. That's all. But I refuse to believe that somehow an athlete or a coach, they're just being who they are. You don't have to be a jerk to get your job done. You don't have to belittle people to get your job done. You don't have to have reporters threaten to get your job done. That's all garbage. Same thing with athletes. You can be ultra competitive without being a jerk to your teammates or your coaches or belittling people in a public manner. It's not necessary. But for some reason, we always defend those who win. But if you lose, then you're a jerk and need to be let go. Unacceptable behavior. I guarantee you, Troy Taylor, if he was coming off back-to-back national championships, he'd probably still be employed by Stanford. He was let go by Andrew Luck because of these, allegations and the investigations of, conduct that's detrimental by belittling female staffers or whatever. Like, that's not appropriate, but he had back-to-back 3-win seasons. That's the main reason he got let go. So when Andrew Luck says our program needs a full reset, what he's saying is that 3-9 is unacceptable at Stanford. Anyways, that stuff's garbage. Sean Hyken is going to join me in studio coming up at 4 o'clock, so we'll get a full hour of basketball talk. Trailblazers drop a game to the Cavs last night. Whatever. I couldn't care less. The Cavs are better. There are some teams you face, like Boston and Cleveland, and you walk away saying, man, they played really well. They just didn't have enough firepower to get over the top and get the job done. Cleveland is a very good basketball team. What a story they are this year. They move the ball exceptionally well. They have great spacing like the Celtics, and they've got multiple guys who can do it. And I kind of like the way they're constructed because they do it a little bit differently. They got a couple of bigs that I really like in Evan Mobley, who had a double-double last night. Jared Allen's a cool dude. They got some good players. Ty Jerome is now like Larry Bird or something. So they got a lot of guys who are getting the job done. I still think they're going to get their ass whooped by Boston in the playoffs. So I'm not buying the Cavs as winning a championship, but they're a really good basketball team. And for the Blazers, the play-in is great. The story of even being in position to possibly make the play-in is a great story. But I'm just going to go back to what I've been telling you from day one of this season. It's all about player development. It's all about developing the players. It's all about getting data to know what you have. And the fact that the Blazers have a clear path forward with 5 players who are improving and getting better is great. It's great. What else do you want? They have a pathway moving forward. They have 5 guys who they brought in through trade and draft who have been highly productive. Donovan Clingan last night was balling out of his backside. 18 points, 12 boards, 3 blocks. And he was looking pretty tough in there. Love that. Props to him. Tamani Kamara has been fabulous. So has Denny Avdia. And we're seeing flashes from Scoot and Shaden, who both had 18 last night. So that's all I care about. Player development. And they're all coming along. And I know for some of you, you refuse to admit it, but Coach Billups is doing a good job of coaching too. Just look at their defense. Look at how many shot clock violations they've forced. Look at the job that Tamani Kamara has done at taking charges. They're top 5 in defense since January 1st. Top 5 for like half the season. I didn't even think that was possible in Portland based on what I've seen the last few years. And yet Coach Billups has got those guys committed to playing on that end of the floor. He's got more of the guys in there that he wants. They're playing with a certain tenacity level, which is nice. So, props to them. And then they get to take on the Sacramento Kings tomorrow night. 5-game road trip. If you want the Blazers to make the play-in, they're probably going to have to go 4-1 on the road trip. They just have really lost any room for error at this point. 9 games to go. You probably have to go 4-1 on the road trip to stay in contention, and we'll see if they can do it. I'm anxious to see how they respond. That's a big game tomorrow because Sac is one of the teams that they're chasing. And they just got Sabonis back in the lineup. They got cold-cocked by Oklahoma City last night. The Thunder are awesome. The question is, are they ready for a postseason run? Are they ready to play big boy basketball when it matters most and get to the finals? I don't know. We're about to find out, though. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a bad, bad boy. Now, at 520, Brad Barbrick, who is a very good friend and a longtime basketball coach out of Concordia, he was on Drew Barrymore a few days ago. And I'm like, what the flip is Brad Barbrick doing on the Drew Barrymore show? But there he was. Not exactly what I expected, but it was really awesome. It's a great story, and so he's going to share that story, and then we'll talk some hoop with him. Get his take on the tournament, What does he think about some of these young trailblazers that are out there getting the job done? I mean, when you see Scoot right now, how can you not be thrilled at what you're seeing with him? Yeah, at the end of last year, I was like, I don't know. Not really sure what they got there. Now I'm looking at Scoot, and I'm like, okay, they got something there. And I like his physical body, too. For a young man, and he is young, he has incredible quad development, and his shoulders they're sculpted. They're perfect. He's got a lot of potential, and I like what I see him from Shaden Sharp, being more aggressive. Hey, Shaden, you are a shooting guard. I don't care if you continue to put up bricks. Keep firing away. That's why I love that stat from the game on Friday against Denver. He was 1 of 10 from downtown. Good. Keep shooting. That's what shooting guards do. You got to have that mentality that every shot is going to go in. And it reminds me of that awesome experience I had after a game one night at Moda Center when the Lakers were in town. And I've shared this story before, but it was terrific. You know, Kobe didn't have a lot of great nights in Portland. The Lakers for years struggled up here. And Kobe would often have poor shooting nights. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but he had one of those games where he did not play well or did not shoot the ball well. He was like 5 of 23 or whatever the numbers were, right? You know, most guys, if they miss like 4 or 5 in a row, they shut it down. They're like, it's not my night. I'll just kick it to another teammate. Guys like Kobe don't do that because they believe every shot they take is going to go in. And there was this dweeb who was surrounding Kobe. He was part of the media. And he was a dweeb. He had like a button-up shirt on, glasses. He was pencil-necked, very scrawny looking. And he asked a demeaning question to the Black Mamba. And he's like, Kobe. And I love it, too, because Kobe wasn't even facing him in the visiting locker room. And he's like, Kobe, you were like 5 of 23 tonight. At some point, did you maybe consider looking to get your teammates involved? And all of a sudden, Kobe slowly, you could see the posture. I was looking at the back of his dome because I'm standing next to this pencil-neck dork. And you could see his body language change from the back end. He slowly turned his head and looked directly in this guy's face, right? So you've got the Black Mamba staring down a pencil-neck dweeb, and Kobe paused for like 3 seconds, and he said, "I'm a shooting guard. Get over it." And then he just resumed with the press conference. How great of an answer is that, by the way? Hey, loser, I am a shooting guard. So by definition, I'm going to continue to jack it up, all right? I'm not looking to dish it out to Sasha Vujacic. No offense. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, I could kick it out to Jordan Farmar, but I like my chances a little bit better. And I'm definitely not going to pass it to Luke Walton because he ain't exactly his dad. All right, so I'm going to keep jacking it up. I might kick it to Fisher because I respect him, but frankly, I'm better. Okay? You okay with that? Pencil-neck dork? I'm a shooting guard. And that's what I want Shaden to develop. Not passive, but just say, F it, man, I'm shooting. The coach gave me the green light. He told me to take it over. I feel like I'm going to take it over. And you need that mentality if you want to become a dominant player in the NBA. That's why I like guys with killer instinct. They're like, screw it, man. I'm going to keep jacking. I like guys that keep jacking. Keep jacking it up, man. Yeah, who cares? Yeah, I'm 5 for 20, but I'm probably going to hit the next 10 in a row. That's how the great ones think. I want Shaden to develop that mentality. Less passive, more aggressiveness. And then some guys are way too aggressive, and they need to find a way to back it off, but they don't. Like Al-Farouq Amino was a little bit too aggressive. He probably should have looked at dish it a little bit more. Like if the pencil-neck dweeb would ask Al-Farouq Amino that question, that would have been a legitimate question. Hey, Farouk, you were 0 for 7 from downtown tonight, 1 for 12 in the game. At some point, did you think maybe you should back off the shot? Yeah, I probably should have. It's my bad. I should have kicked it to Dame or CJ, but not Kobe. He's a freaking badass, all right? Shooting guard. That's what I want from Shaden Sharp. I want him to have that mentality because he's got the potential and the highest ceiling of all the young guys. All right, when we come back, we'll talk Diamond Project primarily because Dwight's got to get the message out. I don't know. Do some people want to sabotage baseball? Are some people such losers that they don't believe that we should be able to have fun in Portland? Because baseball would be a lot of fun, especially during the summertime or the 2 weeks of the year where we actually get a lot of sun. That would be awesome. So we're going to set the record straight with the Godfather and then Sean Heikens in studio at 4. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, always a pleasure to welcome my good friend, the Godfather Dwight James, to the Rip City Drive. Godfather, many things I want to talk about with you, but this nonsense after Dan Hurley melted down and told the Baylor players, I hope they don't F you like they F'd us, talking about the referees. And then Seth
Yeah.
Greenberg came out and said that the tunnel should be off limits to the media, calling it a sacred place. Dwight, I've been to a lot of games. You've been to a lot of games. I know that the locker room is sacred, but the idea that the tunnel is sacred is just absolute rubbish. Garbage.
Yeah, I had to laugh out loud when I saw that. It's sacred. I know you go there to pray sometimes, Chad, but maybe it's sacred for you. But we've both been in a lot of tunnels, and usually in big games where there's going to be a stampede to the locker room for interviews afterwards, what writers do and broadcasters and everybody else, they go down and they watch the final minute or so from the tunnel. They're down there anyway when the game ends. I've done it many, many times on the road with the Trailblazers, not so much at home, but on the road a lot, just waiting. And then they pass by you on the way to the locker room, and you don't start interviewing them then, but it gets you closer to the locker room as soon as it opens. So it's a very common thing, and it's not like there are never any media down there or anything like that. I honestly don't know what Seth's talking about with that. I guess he's just trying to defend his buddy.
I guess that's the case. I was at Motor Center last week, and this is before the game, and Jason Quick was down there hanging out in the tunnel. And you know why? Because he was wanting to catch a conversation with a couple of people. That's just standard operating procedure. But
Yeah.
here's my problem with Dan Hurley. Just like any coach, whether it's Bob Knight, Dan Hurley, or an athlete that berates his teammates all the time, I don't buy into this idea that that's just them being them. You can get your job done and be intense and be a competitor without being a jerk to people, right? I don't know why
Yeah,
they
and
make excuses for people that win all the time.
I agree, and it's sort of the fact that he's won so much. He thinks that justifies what he does, and I don't believe that's true. I think you can win without doing that. There's coaches who don't berate their players, and don't berate the media and everyone else. Don't lose their temper with referees in every single game. You can win without that, and I think. If I were his athletic director or even the school president, I'd have a chat with him about it, and I think, of course, he'd probably say, hey, I'll go somewhere else where they let me do what I want. Well, that's probably fine too, because I don't think it's a good look for an athletic department or a university.
Yeah, I think Dan Hurley is essentially Troy Taylor at Stanford, except he wins a lot of basketball games and he won back-to-back championships because you and I both know if Troy Taylor was coming off back-to-back titles in football, they would not be firing him. There's no way.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. His newfound general manager down there at Stanford would not be firing him at all.
I agree. It's absurd. So we'll see how things shake out. But most importantly, you and I, like a lot of people, would like to see baseball in this town. I want you to reset the importance of this because I don't think a lot of people understand, and the media doesn't understand because there's been some reports that have been improper. When it comes to the new stadium and how they're trying to get it funded, can you break it down so people understand that there's no new taxes that people, the general public in the Portland area, are going to have to pay for?
Chad, I'll try to break it down as best I can, but as you and I both know, I guess I haven't done a very good job so far because there's still so many people that don't understand what's going on here. But they call it the jock tax. And basically, in summation, the players and the staff and the people who work for Major League Baseball will be paying the taxes for part of the construction. Now, there's several things people don't understand. They've asked the legislature for 900,000. That's really a small part of what it's going to cost for somebody to bring franchise here. You talk about, well, owners should pay for it. Owners are going to be paying a huge part of not only the construction of the stadium, but getting the team here. You're either going to have to buy a franchise or pay an expansion fee. That's going to run into the billions, plural. And so they're not getting off scot-free. But here's the thing on the taxes. All they're asking for is the state tax that those players and the people who earn over 200 grand working for the team, the state tax they are paying. So if a team doesn't come here, that money won't be there. nobody's going to have to make up for it if they don't, and construction's not going to start until they're assured they're going to get a team. So, that money is only there if a team is coming, and it's only coming from basically outsiders, not coming from people who live and work in Oregon. They're not going to be involved. They get basically a gift horse, and they're crazy to look it in the mouth. This is a great deal, just like Paul Allen building the Moda Center was a great deal. But if you remember back, Chad, there was so much disappointment from people who said, "Oh yeah, but we got to pay 25 million for roads and infrastructure and all this stuff." Yeah, okay. You got a new arena that by now every one of you out there listening, whether you're a basketball fan or not, has been in and used, and it's a big part of this city. It's a great part of this city, and it's taken so long for Portland to understand the value of stadiums, ballparks, civic areas where people can gather together and celebrate and have a good time. In Portland, they just haven't realized that. And like that leaves us as the only city in the world of any size not to have sports venues that actually the city has paid for. The city in many of these places has been happy to pay for it to have these teams in town for their citizens to enjoy. It's considered an amenity for people living in quality cities. I don't know how much further I can go with that, Chad, if you have questions or whatever, but it's been explained. And I told Craig Cheek in a conversation recently, I said, Craig, you're going to just have to keep beating the drum on this, because every day I look at Twitter and there's a misleading headline that implies citizens of Portland are going to have to pay that 900 grand. And it's flat out not true.
And why do you think we're getting misinformation from media outlets? Is it because they don't understand, or is it this weird mindset that some people have where it's like, well, we've got homeless people and we have our own issues in our city, therefore we can't have something to enjoy like a baseball team?
Yeah, there is that mindset that until we get these issues solved, we can't have anything nice. And I think having something nice might help solve some of the issues. But aside from that, it's interesting to me. I think there is some justification, Chad, in this state because people have been taxed so hard. If you look at any of the data on this, we're one of the highest per capita tax rates in the country. City, state, metro, county, whatever, we're taxed a lot. And I think there is a mistrust of the government for that reason. And people see it and they think, oh, here we go again, another tax. And I can see where they're coming from. I just urge them to look into this one and see what it is.
Now, you've told me that this model has been used before quite successfully, right? Where was it? Minnesota and others?
It's my understanding that, yes, I think it was 500,000 of the stadium funding in Minneapolis for the football stadium was done this way, and the debt was retired like 20 years quicker than they thought it would. Salaries keep climbing higher and higher. And what people have never understood anywhere, I think, is that athletes, look, Kevin Durant plays in Portland. Let's say he plays twice this season, he has to pay taxes on his earnings for that time he spent in Portland. All the visiting teams have to pay these taxes too. It's really a ripoff by all the states, and all the states are doing it now. I think there's like NBA players, I think 17 or 18 states that they have to pay state taxes in. Now, some states don't have state taxes, and so they get off scot-free when they play there as a visitor or a home player. But you can see with taxes, with salaries in these leagues going so high, yeah, it'd be nice to have Soto come in here and Aaron Judge come in here and Mike Trout come in here and let them pay for a new ballpark. I think that sounds like the ideal solution to me.
Yeah, that's terrific. Are you learning anything new about some of the new faces we have in the city government on the council and everything in terms of what is going to be needed to get this across the finish line?
Well, it's unfortunate for the Portland Diamond Project. They had a very good relationship with the previous city council. That council was unanimous in support, as was the previous mayor. Now, the current mayor is in support of this too. Now, the current city council, I would not expect them to be real supportive of this, um, unless they somehow are made to understand what it is. And I think that's a battle to an extent. But we have socialists on this city council, and I don't want to get into politics with you, Chad, but I know a little bit about socialism and what it stands for. And look, they have their right to be whatever they want. That's the way this country operates. But it doesn't probably serve some interest well that we are interested in. So I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I didn't agree with the whole ranked choice voting and the whole increasing the size of the city council. Um, it's got all the earmarks of a real problem, but we'll wait and see how it turns out.
Well, I'm just thinking, like every year, and I know you do the same thing. You travel to go watch baseball games. Like my favorite thing to do, and I've done it now for the last several years, is traveling to a different city to check out a ballpark and go watch a baseball series. Like it's one of my favorite things in the world to do. And think about what it would be like to have people who would make Portland a destination place because they want to come out to a beautiful city during the summertime and watch baseball. I think it's awesome.
Absolutely, Chat. And they would come in. And the idea of a retractable dome makes that much more possible because you have 100% certainty when you buy tickets for a certain date, that game's going to get played. You don't have to worry about rainouts and getting a rain check to have to come to another game. Make your reservations, airline or hotel, whatever, and there's going to be a game that day, and I think that's wonderful. And I want to throw this in too. There's been a lot of studies made, Chad, that having a pro sports team doesn't really add anything to your economy because, well, they say what people do see is they, instead of spending money on going to a movie or going to a concert or a play or something, you'll just take your entertainment fund and put it into sports. So in reality, it doesn't add anything. But that totally ignores the money that people like you and me spend going outside the area to take our entertainment funds and go to Phoenix, LA, New York, Cincinnati, Atlanta, where I've gone to watch baseball in the last few years, and let alone all the people. And it used to be almost 20% of the Mariners fan base comes from the state of Oregon. And you know what? If we can get some of that money back that's going to Seattle for baseball right now, that's a real good thing in my mind.
We're talking to the Godfather, Dwight. Quit making so much sense, Godfather. Dang.
I know. That just doesn't work,
I
does
know,
it?
it doesn't work. Not in this town.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
All right. I want to ask you about the Blazers. Which of the young guys, Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, Tamani, or Denny, are you most encouraged by with the development we've seen over the last couple of months?
Well, that's a good question, Chad, because I've got more than one answer for you there. What I really like, obviously everybody likes Kamara. There's all reasons to do that. Like to see him get a little better offensively, cut the turnovers down a little bit, but defensively he's really good. We all know that. But the thing that surprised me the most is Avdia. He has, and I saw him last year, and then I went back and looked at video when they got him. He's better than he was last year. He's improved quite a bit with the additional playing time. And what I like most about him is how aggressive he is. He's not afraid to take the ball and go. And he's not afraid to be the guy. Now, is he going to be the guy? Probably not. I don't know that he's that good, but he's going to be a guy not afraid to shoot the ball in key spots, not afraid to try to make a block or make a big play, a steal, whatever. He plays no fear basketball, and I like that a lot. Now, I think Scoot's improved a lot.
Yeah.
He's come so far from, you remember you and I talking before the season saying, hey, this is sort of a make it or break it year for him. Yeah. He's got to do it this year. Well, he's done it. He's gotten to the point where at least we've seen the basement. We've seen the low end of what he can accomplish. And I think the low end is be a starting point guard in the league. Now, how high can he go? What's his ceiling? I don't think we know that yet because we still haven't seen him in a full-time starting role taking over the reins. And that remains to be seen. But look, I also like Klingon, and I've kind of advocated for him getting more minutes and even starting. And I think since he's been starting, we've seen rapid development. He's up, playing 30 minutes or so a lot. And as soon as he gets the respect from the referees and also respect from his teammates,
Yeah.
because they play pick and roll with him, Chad, he's loose on that roll. He's loose a lot and doesn't get the ball yet. He will eventually. I'm sure of that. He's going to get the ball on the short roll and when he's open on the block, but it just takes time for teammates to adjust to that. And the big guy's the last guy to get the ball anyway.
Yeah.
The guys who control the ball are the wings and the guards, and they're going to have it most of the time. So, especially in today's game where the three is so prominent, it's harder for a post guy to get the ball. But I think he's going to develop into a guy that you can rely on to score needed baskets in the paint. You can't live and die with the three. You've got to get some points inside. And I think eventually he'll do that.
Yeah, I'm really a big fan of Klingon. I like his mindset. He's just one of those winning basketball players. I wanted to ask you this with Klingon. We saw a couple of weeks ago the Knicks really attack him in his drop coverage, and they had some success. We saw the Celtics use Al Horford to make him defend in space, and he struggled in both spots. But how valuable is it for rookies to get in situations they're uncomfortable with in terms of being able to teach and learn?
Yeah, it has to happen, especially with bigs. They have so much to learn, and it's so hard for them to gain respect within the league. It's just a cliche in the NBA that rookie big men, they don't get calls, they don't get respect. Teams will go at them because they want to see what's there. They
Yeah.
want to make them do things, and they get, he does plays that other big men do. He gets called for fouls and they don't. I see him getting so many cheap fouls. If there's a crowd trying to block a shot inside, a lot of traffic, he's the guy that's going to get tagged with that foul, whether it was his foul or not. That's just part of it. That's the way the league works. So, I think it's going to take a little time for him playing regularly, but hopefully he'll be healthy enough to play regularly. And I'm excited about his future because it's rare now to see a big man with the kind of potential that he has.
All right, one final question for you. Last year we were talking about Coach Billups and how the record, because of all the losses he incurred with, the priority being draft position, if he'd be able to recover from that. Well, what I want to ask you is this, has he now coached himself into a position where the Blazers may pause before they move on from him and consider bringing him back? Or if they do move on, that he's coached himself into getting another job?
I think both of those. I think there's a consideration going on now about bringing him back. They've got to pay him for next year anyway. I'm not sure they want to pay two coaches at the same time. And the team's played well enough. He deserves to come back. I mean, I'm really sick of people who have knocked him for years who won't change their mind now that they see what's going on with his team. Because a lot of what you're seeing happen, especially on the defensive end, that's coaching. It's coaching. They're doing what he wants them to do. They're doing a great job of getting shot clock violations. They're doing a great job of picking players up deep. I think they're a very good defensive team the second half of the year, and he gets credit for that. You got to give him credit for that. And look, if you didn't like him, that's fine, but you've got to be willing and flexible to change your opinion. It's okay to change your opinion about things. Heck no, you and I do it all the time. You got to understand. Hey, I've heard you say it on the air a million times. I was wrong about this guy. He's better than I thought, or he's worse than I thought. Whatever, you got to be willing to do that as a fan too. And I wish more people would give him credit because Chauncey Billups is doing a good job, and he takes way too much gas over it. If you ask me.
Oh, Godfather, I'm getting a lot of reaction. People are happy to hear your voice on the show. Just do me a favor. When we can actually talk publicly about what we were discussing earlier with this project you're on, please let me know because it's going to be a freaking awesome conversation.
Yeah, I might be able to do that pretty soon, Chad. I just need to get clearance on it.
Oh, it's so good.
But
I can't wait.
It should be an exciting time, yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time, buddy. We'll catch up soon and enjoy your afternoon.
Pleasure to be on, Chad. Thanks.
There he is, Godfather Dwight Jaynes. Always nice to hear his voice. I miss seeing him every day. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Sean Highkin going to join me in studio coming up at 4. And Brad Barbarick on the Drew Barrymore show. I got to find out the story. I want to know how that goes down. I think it was in New York. That's pretty sweet. So we'll get that story at 5:20. Sean Highkin in studio at 4. And you got the Rip City Drive. All right, Sean Hyken, Rose Garden Report, our Trailblazer Insider, is going to join me in studio. He is going to come up at the top of the hour, and then Brad Barbrick at 5:20. Now, little side note, I need to deliver a memo to Raider Mike. He called into the show yesterday and said he was on the campus of Appalachian State. And I was curious, like, well, what are you doing there? And then that's when he informed us that his girlfriend is going to school. She's a student at Appalachian State. And so in my mind, I was picturing like an older individual who decided to go to school and maybe start a different career or whatever. But that's when he informed us that his girlfriend is 20 years old. And I'm like, Raider Mike, for the record, how old are you? And he's like, 60. So that's only 40 years difference. And he's basically going Bill Belichick now. Now, I'm not here to hate, right? I'm not really sure what Raider Mike has in common with a 20-year-old. Like, I am a male, so I understand why he might pursue a relationship like that. I get it on that level. But, like, conversation and stuff, like some of the stuff that Bill Belichick is posting on social media, it's wild. Like he's living a dream. So Raider Mike, if you're listening, I just need, I want a picture. Text me a photograph of your girlfriend. I'm curious, and I just need to see what's going on there. And I know you don't lie. So I know you're telling me the truth. I just help me out. I need to complete it in my mind to see exactly what's going on. Raider Mike, 60, girlfriend, student at Appalachian State, 20. That's very interesting to me. I'm like, what do you have in common, Raider Mike? He's like, well, she knows all the great music from the 70s, the 60s. So I guess they share music in common. And then he told me that he was singing. She heard him sing and really thought he was good. I'm not sure I buy that, but that's what he told me. Anyways, I was just curious. I'm fascinated by the whole thing, to be honest with you. I'm fascinated by Bill Belichick dating someone that he's like 50 years older than, too. It's wild to me. But he's doing it. And I guess Raider Mike looked at the Bill Belichick plan and thought, yeah, I can do that. I'll take that path. Very interesting. All right, so we heard from the Godfather talking about the Diamond Project, baseball, and he's been very impressed with Donovan Clingan and a number of the young players. But what I'm noticing with Tamani Kamara, great defense, tenacity, improved three-point shooting, and now he's adding this little pump fake, and he'll work off the bounce to get to the rim on the closeout. So he's adding things to his game. And I'm not frustrated with the loss last night. They lost to Cleveland. You know, Cleveland's a pretty good basketball team that's got nearly 60 wins. They lost to Boston on Sunday. That's the defending champs. Those kind of things are going to happen. But they competed, and they were there in a position. They just didn't have enough to get over the top. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. So the Blazers will take on the Kings tomorrow. And I really do think if they're going to have any hopes of making the play-in, if that's something you want, you're probably going to have to go 4-1 on the roadie. And it's not going to be an easy roadie. And you know how the road trips go sometimes? Like, it's easy to get up for teams like Cleveland and Boston, but how do you do when you got a road trip and you wind up at Atlanta for an early tip? So here is the upcoming road trip for Portland. How many games do you think they can win? Sacramento tomorrow, New York on Sunday, the Knicks, Atlanta, Toronto, Chicago. Can they win 4 of those 5? Sacramento, New York, Atlanta, Toronto, Chicago. I guess they could. And then after that, you got the Spurs, the Jazz, and then the final 2 games of the year, the Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers. We just don't know what they're going to have in terms of lineup at that point on the Friday and Sunday before the end of the regular season. What are they playing for? Are they still jockeying for playoff position? Oh, by the way, too, some of these playoff potential matchups in the first round, fascinating. Like right now, as of today, we would get Memphis and the Lakers in round 1 and the Nuggets and Warriors. Sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. That's awesome. And then the big question with Oklahoma City, who's got 60 wins right now, are they ready for making a run to the finals? Do they have the experience? Are they going to be able to get over the hump? Can they get the job done? Because, darn, they're a good basketball team, and they're deep, and they got talent everywhere. In the Eastern Conference, there's not as much intrigue. Like, I want to watch the Knicks play anyone because they're physical, and Coach Thibodeau's crazy, and his team plays hard. Like, I would like watching them ball. But right now in the East, you would have matchups that if we started today, you get the Knicks and the Pistons. Pistons, one of the very good stories in the NBA. They've got 41 wins. And you get the Pacers and Bucks, a rematch from last year. That would be a very good series. Although I did mention yesterday, not very impressed with Milwaukee. And we got the very unfortunate news about Dame. And I'll say this about Dame. I just want him to take the time necessary to get the treatment and an understanding of what he's got with the blood clot, take care of himself, and if and when he can come back, then make it happen. Just approach this rehab process like everything else you've done in your career. And I know Dame, he's got that determination and that desire. He'll be able to work through it. But that's serious. You start talking about blood clots, it could be a Chris Bosh situation. I think Kerry Agers told me that's the same thing that got Jerome Kersey. That's serious. So Dame's going to have some work to do. But the good news is we live in a day and age where there's a lot of advancements to be able to help guys through those type of situations. All right, Sean Highkin, Rose Garden Report in studio coming up next here on the Rip City Drive.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 4 o'clock chat here. The Blazers got knocked off last night by the best record in the Eastern Conference, the Cavs, 122-111. Darius Garland, 27 points and 8 assists. Big night for Donovan Clingan, 18 points, 12 boards, and 3 blocks. 18 points for both Scoot and Shaden after the game. Coach Billups made it pretty clear the Cavs they're just better.
I mean, absolutely. Like I said, that's why I talked about the good things that we did. We did so many good things in this game. We fought our butt off. That team is better than we are. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference, maybe the best in the league, who knows, but we played our butts off. We made them work for it.
All right, next up, the Blazers are going to begin a 5-game road trip tomorrow night in Sacramento. Tip-off at 7. Our coverage will start with Blazers game day at 5. And just a reminder, every Trailblazers game streams live on our iHeartRadio app from the NFL. Russell Wilson is with the Giants on a 1-year deal, and the Vikings say J.J. McCarthy as QB1 is what they desire. Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer Insider, is in studio with me right now.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio.
Do I sound okay?
All right, we're back. I'm very happy to welcome in studio, hanging out with me for the next hour, Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer Insider from Rose Garden Report. What's up, my friend?
How you doing, man?
Very well.
Good to be back in the studio.
Bring the mic up closer to you. Don't be afraid of that thing. It won't bite you, I promise you. All right, I got to ask a question before we get to specific details. Is there an age range that would be too great for you in terms of your dating life? Like if you found the woman of your dreams, if there was 40 years of difference, would that be a stumbling block for you? Let's say you were 60 and she was 20, something like that.
Is this a Bill Belichick thing? Is this what we're...
Well, it's going to be as soon as we hear from our next caller. Yes, it's a Bill Belichick thing.
Yeah, that's a little bit...
a little bit too much, right? Yeah, I think most people are with you and me where... 5 years, 10 years, that's manageable.
Reasonable.
Yeah, it's reasonable. Bill Belichick, when you get to 40 or 50 years, it seems like there would be some challenges there just based on life experience.
Yeah, when somebody's old enough to be your grandfather, it's like, I don't know.
Well, yesterday, one of our regulars, my good friend Raider Mike, called in, and he said, I'm on the campus of Appalachian State. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. What are you doing there? He's like, well, my girlfriend's a student there. And so in my mind, I was picturing like... someone a little bit older, like commuting to school, deciding to maybe shift up their career or whatever. And he's like, she's 20. And I'm like, okay, for the record, Raider Mike, how old are you? And he said 60. I'm like, interesting. And then he explained what they have in common, talked about music and stuff like that. So I forgot to ask him, but what I need is I want a photograph because my mind is curious now. I want to know what she looks like. And he's with us right now. Raider Mike, what's up, buddy?
What's up, bro?
I need a picture of your girlfriend.
I will get that over to you.
Well, when? Like as soon as the call's over?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
It's going straight to your phone.
Excellent.
Hey,
I love that.
If
Okay.
Mick Jagger can pull it off, so can I.
Okay, well, I got to tell you.
I'm a better singer than Jagger.
Well, I'm not going to say that. Okay, Mick Jagger's a legend, but I know that, your girlfriend heard you sing and she's down, and that's all that matters. So I got to be honest with you. Ever since you called me yesterday, my mind hasn't been able to get off the fact that your girlfriend's 20. I think that's amazing.
She's amazing. She's just good, cool.
All right. Aside from the music, I know what you told me.
Are way smart.
All right. Is she a Raider fan? Is she a Raider fan?
She does not like sports.
Oh, well, that could be a good thing.
She's all music.
Okay.
She's just all music.
Okay.
I played a couple of other calls from like ESPN and stuff for her, and she doesn't even care.
Okay.
She's like, sing me some Lionel.
Okay.
Richie.
I like that. Lionel Richie, that's nice. All right, so when are you going to meet her mom or her father? What are the plans for getting introduced to the family? Because I really need to know how that conversation goes.
I have no idea. Chad, that's up to her. I could care less.
Okay.
All
right.
Right now, I'm dating multiple women.
Oh, gosh, Mike. Does she know that? Does she know that?
Yes, yes. I said though, if she wants me to stop that, that's up to her too.
So you have an
know?
open relationship with her?
Yes.
That's going to go well.
It's fine.
Okay. All right.
No, she loves the knowledge I put into her about music. I've been introducing to her all these bands that she's never heard of, and her mind's blown. And I sing the songs to her exactly like the artist sings, and it's like, so her mind gets blown. So, and then she blows my mind. So it's nothing wrong with it. It's fun. It's legal.
I understand
completely
that.
legal.
No, I'm not saying
And
you're doing anything
Belichick's
illegal.
way bigger gap. Belichick
Well,
and his girl.
I mean, 40 is a pretty big gap, Raider Mike. I'm just
She's
fascinated by the whole
like
thing.
54.
She's
like 54.
I know, yeah, 40, 54, whatever. I just need continual updates on how this progresses. That's all I'm asking you. Just give me updates.
It could be gone tomorrow. You never know. This just started this week.
Oh my gosh.
This is a new thing.
Okay.
Like a week old now.
All right.
But I'll send the pic over.
I need a pic. Send it over.
Anyway, I got nothing as far as sports anymore.
That's okay.
You guys.
Well, frankly,
you
your
guys having
relationship
fun with me.
conversation is better than your sports takes. So just keep dropping relationship
Well,
takes
I'm going
on
to
me.
send the pic over, then you'll understand.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, send it over. I need
All
to
right,
see it.
I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you when I got some sports in here.
All right. Just send me the picture now, please. There you have it. Yeah, 40, that seems a little bit big. Yeah, I don't know. 5 or 10,
Yeah, I don't know.
yes. But 40 is a little bit too steep, right, Sean?
I'm 35, and I don't know if I would be comfortable dating a 20-year-old.
I'm with you 100%. All right, so when I picture you in my mind, Sean, I'm thinking, okay, without knowing you, I'm thinking he must watch basketball constantly. But I know that's not the case because I watch a lot of sports, but it doesn't consume all my time. So what are the things that you look for? Like for me, when I want to get away from sports and unplug, I play golf. That's my getaway. What is yours? Is it music? Is it video games? Is it movies, television shows? Like, what do you do to escape from the constant grind of watching sports?
Out of that stuff, I would say it's more music than anything. But I'm always working on stuff. Whether it's things I'm working on writing. There's talking to different people. It's just as the job takes up a lot of the
Time.
But yeah.
Yeah, because you're always, how this job goes. You always got to be on, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're always looking. You're always thinking. You're always trying to come up with different ideas. Now, have you ever had an interest in pursuing a story that's non-sports related as a writer?
I mean, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but yeah, certainly. Have over. There's not anything right now that I'm thinking about or working on, but.
That's great. I love this, though. We talked about this or touched on it. I think it might have been Burkhart that first dropped this on me, but I love this story. I don't know if it's done yet, but all the different places where you've been wrong about the Trailblazers over the last year. How much fun have you had putting that together and being able to laugh about what you thought and how everything's been a little bit different this year with the successes that they've had over the last couple of months?
It was pretty entertaining going back and looking back at some of the stuff that I was writing back in, starting in July.
Yeah.
And going through, honestly, even probably the beginning of February, like when they first, when they first won the 10 out of 11.
Yeah.
In, late January, early February. And we were talking about like, oh, are they going to push for the play-in? Even then I was still pretty, I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Like I never really took it seriously as a possibility really until they got back from the All-Star break and had the 53-point win over Charlotte and then won the first 3 games of the 7-game road trip. Now I was just like, okay, are they actually going to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. Anything's possible. So the one thing I was thinking about after talking to you yesterday, Sean, is this. Everything they've done so far has surprised everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joe Cronin, the front office. I would imagine Coach Billups is pleasantly surprised. So where were they wrong? Meaning, where have things changed that they did not see coming? Like, what are the 1 or 2 things that have happened that's led to better success than what they anticipated?
Well, the thing you have to remember is just how much health luck they've had this year. I mean, they've had guys miss time here and there.
Yeah.
Shaden Sharp missed the beginning of the season with the shoulder thing, and different guys have missed a little bit of time here and there. But compare that to last year where their 5 main, starters, Scoot, Ant, Shaden, Jeremy, D.A., those 5 guys played 4 games together last season.
It was awful. I think they led the league in like different combinations of starting 5.
Yeah, and like Shaden played 32 games last season, missed pretty much since early January because of the core surgery that he had, and like all these other guys, even just like one guy comes back, the other guy comes out. Maybe the team, and because I remember even at the time, like during last season, their record was what their record was. But if you compared them even at the time to, the Charlottes and the Washingtons and Utah and some of these other teams that were kind of quote unquote tanking, these guys had way more NBA talent than those teams did for the most part. And so this year they've had a little bit better luck with health, and it's the record and the performance has kind of reflected it. But then you also do have to factor in some of the improvement that they've gotten from what Scoot Henderson has done since the beginning of January, what Shaedon Sharpe has done since really the middle of January, beginning of February, when he's really taken off.
Yeah.
After that first month of the season when he was still kind of feeling his way in, just like since then, how well Denny Avdia has fit in, how much better Toumani Camara has gotten this year. There's a lot of stuff that I think they were hoping to get some of that development, but I didn't think they thought it would come this fast.
Yeah, Sean Heikens in studio, our Trailblazer Insiders, hanging out for the hour, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, it's been fun to watch that. You mentioned the health. I can't help but wonder, we never talk about it enough in sports, but this continuity is very important.
It's huge.
So just the fact that they've had relatively the same guys take the floor every night, well, when you're on the floor with someone, you start to understand them better. The communication improves. You stay more connected on both ends of the floor, and that pays off. So the continuity's got to be a big part of the success, along with those individuals, like you just mentioned, making improvements.
Right, and then and Scoot talked a little bit about this last night after the game against Cleveland, where him, Shaedon, and Donovan have all kind of started figuring out where each other likes the ball, or like how to play well together. That's something you can do. You can run through stuff in practice, but it's not until you actually get experience playing together in actual games that you can really develop some of that.
It's been fun the last two games to see the Blazers take on two of the best teams in the NBA, Boston and then Cleveland. Like, I walked away from the Boston game, and I'm like, okay, that team's a legit title contender.
Mm-hmm.
I watched Cleveland last night, and I really like how they play.
Yeah.
They've got a great roster. They're getting the most out of everyone on the roster. Like, even Ty Jerome. I mean, he looks like a different player in Cleveland. They execute well. Their ball movement's nice. Their spacing. Like, I walked away with a lot of respect for the Cavs.
And even a guy like Max Strus, who's basically the one time that a team has given a big contract to one of these like Miami undrafted guys, and it hasn't come back to bite them, and like he actually has ended up being that good.
He looks great.
Yeah, like you remember like Gabe Vincent got that big contract from the Lakers, hasn't really done anything.
And when they signed him, I thought, man, I've seen Gabe Vincent. I like that, and he hasn't done much.
Because these the Heat kind of get these undrafted guys, and they are able to turn them into rotation players, and then they usually get a lot of money somewhere else and never really do anything. Max Strus is kind of the exception, where it's like the Cavs sign him to this big contract, and it's like, oh no, that actually is really valuable shooter.
And I like their two bigs. Evan Mobley's cool,
Yeah.
and I've always been a fan of Jared Allen. The way they play, and they're smart, and yeah, it's impressive. I don't think they're going to beat Boston in the 7-game series, but they're well coached, and they execute really well. One of the good stories, I would say, Cleveland, Detroit, two of the teams that come to mind when I think about good stories in the league this year.
Definitely.
And Detroit's got 41 wins,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be a legitimate playoff team.
I think that's the kind of improvement these guys are hoping for next season.
Knicks and Pistons first-round matchup would be fun to watch.
Would be real interesting. You're starting to hear it be like the popular take that the Pistons would win that series, which now makes me think it wouldn't happen.
No.
When that many people are predicting it.
Yeah, I like watching New York. Like, the one thing I love about the Knicks is you can tell there's a lot of togetherness on that group, and they play really hard.
Uh-huh.
Now, their coach is going to run every single one of them into the ground, but they play hard for him. They respect him.
Yeah, I mean, and then I think Brunson's supposed to be back at some point soon. I don't think he'll be back by Sunday when the Blazers play there, but supposed to get him back soon.
All right, what a treat. Sean Heiken, our man, is in the studio, Trailblazer Insider. He'll be with us all the way through the hour. If you got any questions for Sean, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive. MJ. I'm going to use the desktop here, buddy. All right, Sean Hyken, my man, is in studio. So great to see you face to face and just hang out and talk some sports. A couple of things from last night. The Blazers got up 52 threes. We've been really seeing them attack from downtown. Coach was asked about that number, 52 threes, and whether or not he's okay with that.
Well, if they're there, I want us to take. I want us to take them, but I want them to be good shots. I just don't want anybody just firing it at any time and no time and score. I want it to make sense. If we do a really good job and drive the paint and collapse the defense and we kick it out, for sure. I want those shots. We work on those shots all the time, and we'll continue. We'll shoot it better and better and better as we keep working, but I'll take that. If we can get good looks like that, I will take it all day.
What'd you think about that number? The Blazers get up around 53s. It seemed like last night most of their attempts from downtown were good looks.
Well, when you're playing against teams like, especially Boston the other night, but then also Cleveland, where that's a lot of what they do. That's pretty much the only way to compete with those teams is to play that type of game. And
you got to score with them.
You have to, and so you have to get those shots up. And now I don't know if the Blazers necessarily have the personnel to be able to do that on a night-to-night basis and be as successful as those teams. But when you're playing against those teams, that's just kind of the way you got to play.
All right. He also talked about what type of team he's looking for, what he wants. I thought this answer was very interesting. Here's Coach Billups.
I want us to always be an attacking team. I want to attack. I want to put pressure on teams on both sides of the ball. If that means getting to the basket, we got to learn how to finish better. And as we mature, and as we get better, and as we keep growing, we will finish more. You look at a guy like Shaden, how he's finishing around the basket right now at a really, really high level. Well, we couldn't say that 3 months ago. He had the prettiest dunks in it, but his finishing wasn't great. Well, you look at the leap he's made already. So I'm saying keep going. We'll figure that out. We'll figure that part out, and if we can, at some point, we're going to become a good finishing team around the basket and also a good three-point shooting team. And when that happens, we will have arrived, but you got to set it in place early on and just kind of keep getting better at it.
So if I'm hearing him correctly, they're not where they need to be or where he wants them to be right now, but they're moving in that direction.
Right, and some of the stuff that he's talking about with wanting to be more aggressive attacking the rim, that's something that they've been on Shaden about for a lot of the season. And, I think that's another thing that the addition of Denny Avdia has really helped because that's really the style, that downhill style is a lot of the way that he plays. That's something that I think they feel like Scoot's big strength is too. So it's just a matter of, they have to figure out how to balance, the letting those guys kind of operate in that area, but then also kind of what we were talking about earlier with the amount of threes that you have to get up to hang with a team like Boston or Cleveland. Like you can't have like one at too much at the expense of the other. So it's just kind of a balance that they're having to strike.
Now Klingon last night, solid, 18 points, 12 boards, 3 blocks. I thought it was nice to see him bounce back. The game back on March 2nd, he fouled out and he was
played like 10 minutes.
Yeah, he was irritated because he knows that he cost his team in that spot. Here's Coach Billups talking about Klingon's performance.
Yeah, he was really good today. We really missed him in that game out there. I was just kind of putting stuff together, trying to get through the game. He was good today. He gets a double-double, 3 blocks. I mean, he made his presence known in there.
I thought Klingon looked terrific. And what's been nice over the last couple of weeks is we're seeing him in certain games get that minute number up a little bit higher. So his conditioning looks to be a little bit better. But I thought he was really engaged and locked in throughout last night.
And it's encouraging to see him do that against Cleveland after what happened the first time they played against each other in Cleveland earlier this month. Because, coming out of that game against the Cavs earlier this month where he fouled out and only played 10 minutes or whatever it was, you just thought, okay, this is just a bad matchup for him. Or, it's just like when he goes against Jokic or whatever, there are certain guys, you look at Cleveland with 2 of the best bigs in the NBA in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. It's just a bad matchup for a rookie center. And so you just think, okay, that was just going to be a night that he was going to struggle no matter what. So I thought it was pretty encouraging that, less than a month later, he gets to face them again. And he has the night that he had last night where he was impactful on both ends of the floor. He was even stepping into a few open threes and knocking them down, which it's kind of funny that ever since they drafted him, do you remember last offseason after they draft him, the team puts out that little 5-minute video going through like his whole pre-draft process with like the behind the scenes footage of his pre-draft workout, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they show him hitting a few 3-pointers just when he's getting shots up during his workout here before the draft. And you pan to like Joe and Chauncey and Mike and Serge and like the assistant, like the whole front office sitting on the sidelines being like, oh yeah, he's going to be able to make NBA threes. And then on the day that they did his press conference after the draft, Donovan was talking about like, oh yeah, I can hit. Like they've been pushing it hard that he's going to be able to shoot threes. And the entire time I've just been like, yeah, okay, that's what teams say about every big man who's not a 3-point shooter is, oh, he can, like, I'm old enough to remember people would say, you know, when he was in Orlando, people would say, oh, you guys just don't understand. Dwight Howard knocks down 3-pointers in practice.
Yeah,
So whenever somebody like Donovan, who was not a shooter in college, whenever like the team starts saying, oh yeah, he can hit those threes, we want him to take more of those threes. Or like these guys did it with Nurk for however many years. I'm always just like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. If you guys want to push that, that's fine, but okay. But so it was kind of encouraging to see him knock a few of those down. I don't know if it's ever going to become a real part of his game, but if he's got it and he's wide open and they're just leaving him and he's got like 5 seconds to shoot it with nobody close to him, you know, clearly he can knock those down.
Yeah, and I think that what's going to happen is that if he can step up and make that on a semi-regular basis, it's sure going to help the offense because of the way the defense is playing them.
Yeah.
And if they're going to leave him wide open on the top, it's okay in those moments or certain situations to pull away.
Yeah, you just got to be able to knock down the wide open ones. I don't think it's ever going to get to a point where they're drawing up plays to get Donovan and Klingon a 3-pointer.
But
I
in
don't
some
think that's
sets, if he's open for that long and you can make it, then make the defense pay for how they're playing.
right. If he's open, being able to knock those down at like a 35% rate at some point, even if it's on a super low volume, like that's helpful.
Just like it's helpful that Tamani Kamara is developing his 3-point shot, because if you got to worry about Denny and Tamani out there on the wing knocking down threes, it can open up driving lanes for guys like Shaden Sharp. I mean, it's critical.
Yeah, I mean, the Denny thing, his shooting has kind of held roughly about to where it was last year when he made this huge leap.
And that's a good sign.
Yeah, the fact that last year wasn't just a one-year blip, because I do remember when they made that deal, and, you know, I knew somewhat about how good Denny was, but I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm watching every Wizards game and I know his entire game and his entire career and his evolution inside out.
Of course not, because if you told me you watched every Wizard game last year, I would call the paddy wagon and have you taken to the mental hospital, because no one does that. That's awful basketball.
I don't even think Wizards fans were watching every Wizards game last year. But
no.
But the point being, I was kind of looking at I pulled up his basketball reference page when they traded for him, just to kind of, you know, just glance at it and kind of see what, you know.
What did you see in the 3-point numbers?
And it was like first 3 years of his career was like low 30s, low 30s, low 30s. And then last season it was up to 37%. And that kind of made my eyebrow raise up a little bit, because I was like, if it was just that big of a 1-year jump, was that a blip? Is that going to be sustainable? Did they give up a lot for a guy thinking that shooting was going to be sustainable, and then it's just going to turn out to be just a fluke good shooting year, and that's going to come back down, and that's going to come back to bite them a little bit? But that really, and honestly, the first month or 6 weeks of this season when he was struggling, that was kind of what I was thinking might have happened. I was never like ready to panic about it, but I was thinking like maybe this guy isn't what he was advertised at. And then really after that 5 or 6 week mark of the season, he started to really put it together. And since then it's been like, oh yeah, this is what they signed up for when they traded for him.
Well, the good thing is there are guys who can improve their 3-point numbers. I saw an interview recently with Dan Marley, who, you know, was a big time stud and star with the Phoenix Suns. And early in his career, he was an athletic guy who played above the rim. He was a slasher and looking to attack the paint. But as time went on, and then the Suns acquired Charles Barkley, his game changed because they were kicking it in, and then Barkley would find the open shooters out there on the perimeter. So Marley knew that if he was going to continue to be a relevant part of that team, he had to adjust his game. So he went into the offseason and started working on his shot, putting up a large volume of threes to improve that so that he could become a 3-point threat, which he did. And because you have to learn and realize what you have around you and say, this is how I can help my team now.
Jason Kidd is another one. When he first came into the league,
Couldn't shoot.
The joke that people made about him was his name was Asen because there was no J, because he couldn't shoot. And then, you know, by the end of his career, like when he was with Dallas, like when they were winning title, like kind of around that, or like that 1 year that he had with the Knicks where the year that Carmelo won the scoring title when he was on that Knicks team, that he was like a 40% 3-point shooter by that time because he kind of worked on it. And I think he kind of realized that, as he gets older, that athleticism goes away. The way that he was playing when he was a lot younger isn't going to really work anymore. And so he was kind of able to evolve his game. Vince Carter is another guy that became a really good outside shooter as he got older. And that's why he was able to play into his 40s when he wasn't the, dunker and the crazy athlete that he was early on.
He would actually be a fun case study. I'd love to sit down and talk with him because he's one of the rare guys that was superstar power and then transitioned into NBA role player and carved out an incredibly long career. It's
22
fascinating.
years.
Yeah.
I think he played 21, 22 years. Yeah.
Do you know how hard it is for a superstar to adjust his thought process? And you have to have a great understanding of who you are and then the ability to understand what you're capable of in the moment to be able to adjust like that. Not too many guys can pull that off.
To a degree, Carmelo Anthony did that when he got here because there was some thought that,
he would shoot too much.
He would shoot too much. And then also, the way that Oklahoma City went for him and the way that Houston went for him. And it just didn't go well. And there was kind of this idea that it might be kind of like the way that Allen Iverson's career ended, where he was just never willing to adjust what he was doing and thought he was still like the old Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
And then he basically went from being an all-star to being out of the league basically overnight. There was kind of this thought that was going to be what happened to Carmelo. And then he gets here and he embraces coming off the bench and he becomes kind of this catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He's able to extend his career another 2-3 years after that.
Yeah, I would say when he was signed, I kind of laughed it off. Like I thought it was kind of a joke. But he was better than what I envisioned as a trailblazer. He wasn't as bad as I thought. It was okay.
He was good. He was good. The thing people forget about him is that wasn't just like, oh, this is a cool thing that they're going to sign Carmelo. They needed him because that was the year that Zach Collins has the shoulder. Zach Collins was starting power forward at that point. He has the shoulder injury, and so he's out for the season pretty early in the season.
And then Hood.
Well, Rodney Hood had the torn Achilles a little bit later on, but after Zach Collins goes out, their other options at power forward are Kent Bazemore, who was kind of past his prime at that point, Anthony Tolliver, who's way past his prime at that point, Nasir Little, who was a rookie, he was 19, he was not close to ready, and then Mario Hezonja, who unfortunately was just not really ever an NBA caliber starter. So that was kind of what they were working with when Zach Collins went down, and so Carmelo's out there. They didn't really have anything to lose by just giving it a shot and taking a flyer on it, and it worked out well.
That was really an incredibly frustrating season because they're coming off the Western Conference Finals trip. They had acquired Hassan Whiteside. You knew Zach Collins was ready to emerge and become the power forward, and then the season was derailed by injury. Very frustrating.
That was the COVID year, too.
Yeah. Everything that could have gone wrong that year went wrong.
Yeah, and then, they kind of they were actually kind of one of the first beneficiaries of the play-in because they were behind. They were out of the 8th seed when it got into, when they did the bubble and the play-in, which was the first year they did the play-in. They had to catch Memphis, and they ended up being able to do that and getting into the playoffs and then losing to the Lakers in the first round. But
did you go down and cover the bubble?
No. I wanted to. I told my editor, I was at Bleacher Report at the time, I told my editors I would do it because, I'm just sitting at home. What am I going to I don't have anywhere else. I don't have kids. I could I'll go spend 90 days at Disneyland or Disney World rather. Like I'll do that.
Yeah.
Do you know how much, take a guess, how much do you think it cost for a media outlet to send a reporter down there? Let's say you're going down there, you're staying the whole 90 days.
For the whole 90 days?
How much do you think it costs?
Oh my gosh, 10 grand. Higher than 10 grand?
Way higher than 10 grand.
50.
Yep. Somewhere around there, yeah.
Well, that's insane.
Well, but when you really break it out, when you really think about, that sounds insane on paper, but 90 days at one of those, nice like Disney resort hotels, and you get like food provided and transportation and all that stuff. When you actually break out what it is, it does pencil out, but you see that number on a page and you're just like, okay, that's.
I better get a lot of Mickey Mouse stuff for 50 grand.
But I figured that, it'd have been better if the league should have just picked up the tab. You would have think for what they were doing, which was kind of groundbreaking to have that whole area where you have the NBA continuing their season in that little bubble. It would have been better just to pay and pick up the cost for the media to be down there to cover something so unique.
But then you get into the area of like, are you accepting gifts from the people that you're covering? It's the same reason that beat writers don't fly on the team plane, because then it turns into this whole like ethical thing where like,
well, the beat writers used to fly with the players on commercial.
On commercial, well, that's different because it's commercial flights. So it's just they just book themselves onto the same flights. When like, I would feel uncomfortable flying on a team plane as a beat writer.
Yeah, because you would, yes, depending on your role, if you're a beat writer, then you would appear to be compromised at that point.
Right. And we don't want there to be any questions about that. Whereas, and especially for something like that, where when the COVID stuff was happening and the bubble and all of that, there were people who were wondering whether it was irresponsible of the NBA to try to push the season to go forward, even though we were still in the thick of the pandemic at that time. And there would have been a perception, I think, of if they were paying for all these reporters to be down there and they were just getting all this positive coverage of how great it was that they were doing, there would have been reason for people to be like, I don't know about this.
What's the latest you've heard on Dame in regards to the blood clot?
I haven't heard anything in terms of beyond the statement that he put out and the statement that the team put out, but it does sound like the most likely scenario is that this was just a one-off thing and that it's not, because the way that it's going to, it's the same thing that Victor Wembanyama had, or the thing that Brandon Ingram had. The scary one that you always think about is Chris Bosh, who had it be a career-ending thing. But the thing with Bosh is I think his ended up being a hereditary thing. And I think with Dame, if it was going to be a hereditary thing, they might have discovered it earlier, like when he had the core surgery a few years ago or sometime around there. But I think based on what I've heard and what I've read about it, it sounds like the most likely thing is that he's going to be on this course of this treatment of blood thinners for 3 to 6 months, and then assuming that clears it up, then he's going to be fine.
Okay, good. And the Bucks without Dame, I didn't really like their chances with Dame, so now they're in big trouble.
Yeah, I don't think anything's happening there, unfortunately.
Yeah, the only team that I think has an outside chance, is there any team outside of Cleveland and Boston that has any type of chance to make a noise in the Eastern Conference? Anybody?
Maybe the Knicks, but even then, that's like you got to stretch it to include them.
You think Brunson will be 100% by playoff time?
If he is, then I think they got a shot. If he's not, then probably not.
Yeah, Brunson, I hated to see him go down because I respect how he plays.
Absolutely.
That guy's hardcore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big minutes, and he's willing to take on anything. He's like, whatever you want, coach, I'm in.
All those Tibbs guys, all those.
Josh Hart, he'll do whatever.
Yeah, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, the NBA's Iron Man.
Yeah. You know what has turned out really well for them, too? Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
What did you think of that trade when it went down? Did you understand what the Knicks were doing, or were you a little concerned on that move?
I thought it was an upgrade based on what they gave up.
Yeah.
I didn't know about giving up 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, so that was the one I had a little bit more questions about. But for what they gave up, I thought the Towns trade was fine, and it's worked out really well for them.
Yeah, and I like Bridges, too, but 5 first-rounders, that's a
lot.
That's a hefty sum.
It's a lot.
Now, in the Western Conference, why do we doubt Oklahoma City? Because they're great.
I'm not doubting Oklahoma City.
Do you think their lack of experience will prevent them this year, or are they ready to make a deep run?
I think they're ready to make a deep run. I think a lot of people will say that they're not because they haven't done it before. And it's just, there's just this tendency, if a team hasn't done it before, people don't think they can do it.
We question it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. We have another segment with Sean Hike and our Trailblazer Insider. You got the Rip City Drive. Brad Barber going to join at 5:20. All right, what's the best thing to cover? The draft, the combine, or is Summer League by far the best NBA event to cover?
So I've never actually covered the draft in person in New York. That's the one league event that I've never covered, and I frankly don't have a lot of desire to cover.
Oh, you covered the lottery.
The lottery is in Chicago, which is the same week as the combine. I like that week.
What's it like being back? You were there for the Wemby draft with the lottery beforehand. Like, walk me through that process. How'd that go down?
So I was there for both the Wemby one and then the last year when Atlanta got the number one pick. And basically what they do is it's like probably 10 or 12 media members that they put in there. And basically they want to have some of us in there to have people who aren't, so it's us. And then they have a representative from each team also in there. So the last 2 years for the Blazers, it's been Sergey Oliva, who is one of Joe's assistant GMs, who this year is the head coach of the Remix. But it's been Serge the last 2 years that was in there for the Blazers. And we're all in there. We watch the ping pong balls come out of the machine.
So you're actually watching the ping pong ball.
Yeah, and they're so like over the top. Having seen it in person twice now, there is no way they could rig it even if they wanted to. Like, they're so obsessive about, like, they go so far over the top of, like, making sure everybody knows that everything is above board and nothing is messed with, that, like, they have an official timekeeper that'll hold up their hand every 10 seconds to make them draw another ball out of the machine. And they're so obsessive about it that the person who has to hold up their hand every 10 seconds, their back is turned to the ping pong ball machine so that they can't see, like, what the number is that's coming out. Like, they take so many precautions to make sure that there's no way that it could be rigged, and every single step of it is, like, as transparent, and everybody in the room sees every little bit of it that's going on. But it is just funny that, like, they draw out a combination of 4, and then the ping pong balls kind of stop bouncing because they turn the machine off for a little bit. And then they go over to somebody who has every single combination, like, printed out on a giant whiteboard on one of the walls. And that person will just, like, look at the combination, find the combination, and then call out which team it was that is matched to that combination. So when they called out San Antonio as having the number one pick in 23, the Wemby year, everybody in the room just kind of looks at each other like, oh my, like, this is insane. Like, the Spurs are getting Wemby now. Like, the league has kind of changed forever. And then last year, when they call out Atlanta as having number one, even though it's kind of a big deal that the team with the 10th highest odds jumps up to the number one pick, normally that would be a huge thing. But because there's such a difference between last year's draft class and the 23 draft class, when Atlanta got the number one pick, everybody in the room was just, like, kind of shrugged and was just like, okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, it would have made much more news if a team with the 10th best odds would have jumped up to get someone like Wemby.
To get Wemby. Or, like, I think New Orleans was pretty close to that the year that they jumped up for Zion. And certainly this year, whoever gets Cooper Flag, it's going to be, like, a similar amount of tension in the room.
Like, if the Blazers were to jump up and get Cooper Flag.
If they're at, like, 8th or 9th and they jump up to 1, then yeah, that would be.
Now, will you go to the lottery again this year?
I plan to be there, yes.
Okay.
I don't know whether I'm going to be in the room again, because that's usually something the league figures out before, right around the time of the lottery.
Were you sequestered during that period of time from the reveal up until it's announced publicly?
Yes. So they took away, they take us into this room. They take away our phones. They take away basically anything that could communicate to the outside world so that it doesn't leak. And then, we just kind of, they draw the thing. The actual process of drawing the names out takes like 5 minutes.
So the only people in that room are the only ones who know what the results are.
And we know it like an hour ahead of time. And then, they show it they do the whole presentation on TV, which is in one of the big auditoriums in the hotel ballroom that the league rents out for that thing. And then, once they've revealed it on TV, then we're allowed to go back out and rejoin the outside world.
Now, how quickly did you know about the combination with the Blazers just being off by one number?
They gave us a little print. They give everybody who goes in there, they give them a printout so that they can track it themselves. And so I was like looking at my sheet, circling it, and as the Blazers get as the first 3 numbers get called out and the Blazers are still alive, I'm just like thinking, is this going to happen? Are they really going to get Wemby? And then they call it out and they call out the actual thing. And it's just takes the air out of the room a little bit, but then a few minutes later, they get called out for number 3. They move up from 5 to 3. So it's like, okay, they still moved up. So that's, this day was still a win for them, even if it wasn't, the home run.
Yeah, it wasn't Victor Wembanyama. How close is Cooper Flagg to Victor Wembanyama?
I think just because Cooper Flagg is not 7'4" or whatever Wemby is with that skill set, I don't think it's quite at the same level, but he's certainly the American prospect that's been the most hyped probably since maybe Zion, but maybe even like longer than that, maybe since LeBron. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. That's how big it is.
Yeah.
And then the fact that he's an American-born white is interesting because
Sure.
it draws comparisons to Larry Bird, which is fascinating to me.
It's always funny that those are the only comparisons that people can make.
Yeah, that's it. No, I'm excited to see what happens and where Cooper Flagg's going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Blazers, I mean, heck, I guess at their position, like you said, even if they don't get number 1, if you can just move up into the top 4 to get a difference maker, that would be huge, right?
It would be, and if they end up with 8th, if they end up 8th in the lottery, they have a 26% chance of jumping into the top 4, which is not nothing.
Yeah, that's a good chance to move up into the top 4, and we see teams with those type of percentages move up all the time.
Atlanta was 10th, and they moved up to 1.
Yeah, top 4 would be great, and like you said, this draft in terms of getting a legitimate difference maker. Even if it's not Cooper Flagg, it could go, 3 or 4 deep where you get someone that can come in and be able to mix in right away.
That's the thought, yeah.
Or if you have a guy who could come in and be a legitimate big point guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how it shakes out. No, it's that's good because when you go back and watch the video of David Stern pulling out the frozen envelope with the little clear ball with the envelopes in there and they're just spinning it around to mix up the envelopes, it looks so archaic compared to the system that you watch firsthand.
Right. And I mean, I think because of the frozen envelope conspiracy theories that that they've gone so far over the top to make sure that everybody knows that it's not rigged. That's why really the way you know that it isn't rigged is that that Zion Williamson ended up in New Orleans and not New York.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you were trying to fix something, you would not put Zion in New Orleans.
You would not.
No, you'd want him in New York. It's just weird, the video, because David Stern looked uncomfortable when he's pulling out the envelope. The whole thing is just weird. It's bizarre, but it's good that the league does that, because the one thing that's the league's got to shake is this idea that the league, there are fans, not everyone, but there are fans who feel like the league is rigged. It's a weird situation where you've got the officiating, which people aren't unhappy about. Some people think the league is rigged. Like they have to go above and beyond to make sure that people know that their approach is above board.
There are even people that think that the league orchestrated this Luka trade to the Lakers to save ratings or something, which is ridiculous. But
yeah, because there was a, you got Giannis in Milwaukee, you had Luka in Dallas. I mean, it doesn't hurt the league that Luka's now in LA.
No, it doesn't. But like this idea that was something that the league orchestrated.
Well, that's Dallas's fault because everyone's trying to make sense of why you would trade Luka, and
there's no actual explanations.
Yeah. So the only thing that makes sense is a wild conspiracy makes more sense than just we
decided to trade Luka.
Yeah, it does.
It's been almost 2 months since the trade. I still am trying to wrap my head around it.
Sean Hyken, you can check him out. Go to rosegardenreport.com. You can follow him on social at Hyken. He is our Trailblazers insider on 620 Rip City Radio. Thanks for coming in and hanging out, buddy. I enjoyed it.
Of course. This is always good.
All right. Sean Hyken will come back. Brad Barbick is coming up at 5:20 on the Rip City Drive.
And here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, it's now 5 o'clock. What's going on, my friends? Trailblazers fall to the Cavs last night, 122-111. Donovan Clingan, 18 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks. Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp each scored 18 after the game. Coach Billups.
I mean, absolutely. Like I said, that's why I talked about the good things that we did. We did so many good things in this game. We fought our butt off. That team is better than we are. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference, maybe the best in the league. Who knows? But we played our butts off. We made them work for it.
Next up, the Blazers kick off a 5-game roadie tomorrow against the Kings in Sacramento. That tip-off at 7. Our coverage begins with Blazers game day at 5. You can catch every Trailblazer game streaming live on our iHeartRadio app. From the NFL, Russell Wilson is now with the Giants, a 1-year deal, and he says he expects to be the starter. The Vikings say the outcome they're looking for is for J.J. McCarthy to be QB1 now that Sam Darnold is in Seattle. Brad Barber going to join me at 5:20 here on the Rip City Drive.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, Brad Barber, a good friend and longtime basketball coach, going to join me coming up in 20 minutes. He just experienced something really cool. I want to talk to him about that. Trailblazers back in action tomorrow. They have 9 games to play as they continue to make a push for that final playing spot in the Western Conference. And we're back into it with the Sweet 16 tomorrow. I'm going to be down at Spirit Mountain Casino on Friday and Saturday. Friday from 3 until 6. And then Saturday from 1 until 4. So if you're looking for a sweet place to watch the tournament and at the same time be able to get in on the action, Spirit Mountain Casino is your place to bet on college sports. And I'll be down there in the sports book at Spirit Mountain Casino. I love the whole setup there. If you haven't been there yet, then I encourage you to go down. It is Vegas style, so it's a big open area. They've got a sweet video wall with screens that are in all directions, so you won't miss any of the games or the action. They got big cushy chairs to sit in, and there's a lot of space. I'm not one that likes to be shoulder to shoulder with other people. I like to have a little breathing room, and the way they've set up the sports book, they definitely have that. It's also right next to the Stadium Bar and 10 Barrel Brewing where you can get, a bite to eat and a nice brew. And so it's a great place to hang out and watch sports. And the best part is if you head down with yourself or one of your boys, then your significant other won't be on you because you're not at home doing the honey-do list. And see, that's one of the downsides to this time of year when we have nice days like yesterday and today. You're expected as a man to go out and do stuff in the yard. Projects, right? And you don't want to do projects when we got the tournament going on. So you may have to escape. And that's why I'm here for you. I'm encouraging you to go to Spirit Mountain Casino. You can do so anonymously. You can hang out in the cushy sports bar, watch all the games, enjoy some good food. I'll be down there, and I've got prizes to hand out. So I'll be down there Friday from 3 until 6, and then Saturday from 1 until 4. And then after I'm done on the show on Saturday, I'm going to host Pot of Gold. So you can hang out and participate in the drawings. Pot of Gold, your chance to walk away with an actual legitimate bar of gold. I think it's 1 ounce. I just checked the price of gold. It's gone up over the last couple of weeks. An ounce of gold is now worth like $3,010. So that's a pretty good little chunk of change there. So come on down, man. Don't hang out at the house. You're going to get put to work. You don't want that. Every time I talk to my dad, my mom's got him doing projects. He was up on the roof the other day, once again, with that stupid harness. Like somehow that's going to protect him if he falls off the roof. It's like, Dad, you're in your upper 70s. Are you sure that you should be doing that? So my mom made him get this harness that's like hooked to the roof. So if he does fall, it supposedly will stop him before he comes off the roof and dies. Seems real safe to me. I asked him, I said, Dad, why don't you just wait and then I'll come over on this day and help you? Well, I mean, you're busy. I don't want to bother you. You know how dads are. Dads never want to ask for help. Dads never want to pretend like they can't get something done. And so he doesn't want to ask for my help. So therefore, he's up on the roof with a freaking harness. And not a good idea. No wife wants their husband of 50 years walking around on the roof, cleaning up the moss or whatever they do up there. I have no idea. I'm not a fix-it-up type of guy. You basically don't want me doing any type of home improvements on your home because I will destroy it. And like I've told you many a times on this ridiculous show, one of the things that makes me feel inferior as a man is the fact that I can't do anything with my hands. Nothing. I can do nothing. I am a useless ass clown. I can do a radio show. And my dad tries to tell me, he's like, well, I can't get behind a microphone and talk for 3 hours. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I can't fix a car, fix a washer, fix a dryer, do electrical work, get up on the roof and do that. Like anything that's wrong, like how does he know how to just do all that crap? And he doesn't have an answer to that. He's like, I don't know. Hey, Dad, how did you learn how to fix a roof, do electrical work, fix a washer, fix a dryer, do mechanical work, and by the way, pull out a wood lathe and start carving stuff up? And his answer is always like, I'm not sure. And I think what he told me once that made some kind of sense, I guess, is he told me, he's like, look, when I was younger, back in my day, I spent a lot of time hanging out in the garage with Papa and watch what he did and try to help him do what he was doing. And he goes, you have to remember, I grew up in a day and age where we didn't have disposable items. Meaning if something broke or if something needed repair, you did not just toss it in the garbage or drop it off at Goodwill. You had to repair it so that you could continue to use it because he didn't have the cash to go out and buy something new. Now, in today's generation, we've grown up in this world where it's like, well, it just broke, go buy another one. Who gives a flip? Whatever, just go get another one. That's what we do. And that's what I do. Maybe some of you don't. So I just so you know, if you can do things with your bare hands, I'm envious of you because you're more of a man than I am. That's how I view that. Oh, by the way, I got a picture from Raider Mike sent to my phone. He said he would. I knew he wasn't lying because the one thing about Raider Mike, he's crazy. I have to use the dump button on him from time to time because he gets out of control in the air. But he does not lie. He's always straight with me. His 20-year-old girlfriend is, I got to think about how I say this nicely. Well, she's not unattractive. Let's just say that. So good for you, Mike. Good for you. Let's go out to the phones. I think the preacher's out there bumping around. Preacher, what's going on, my friend? Long time no chat.
Oh, man, I miss The Godfather. He makes baseball fun again. I love his commentary. I mean, I love The Godfather for sure, but...
Hey, Preacher, can you imagine how nice it would be, like, during the summertime if you and Holly were to roll out to a baseball game in the sun?
There's a lot of... Yes, I agree, but there's also a lot of commentary in regards to no sales tax in Oregon. There's only 2 states that have no sales tax, and they're on a fixed income on that state. And, I understand what they're dealing with. And there's congested highways and of unsure, vice versa attitude. So I totally understand.
So you're on board with getting baseball in town?
I mean, honestly, yes. I think people need to enjoy things, you know?
I agree.
So that's, and, sometimes it's based on whose dollar, but I totally agree. You got to get baseball into Portland. There's a congested area in certain areas. I mean, you know how it's going. But let me say this. Can I take this moment?
Hey, Preacher, Preacher, the stage is yours. You can take this wherever you want to go. Say whatever is on your mind.
Well, I'm going to start with Raider Mike. You know what? I heard Raider Mike 2 years ago, and please, Raider Mike, don't take offense. I heard this
side question, Preacher. Are you 40 years older than Holly?
No.
Okay. Just checking.
Well, I mean, he's clearly dealing with a blitz on his side. I mean, okay. So either which way, I'm going with Raider Mike here. And 2 years ago, he said this commentary: the Raiders are the best team in NFL at 6-9. The best team in NFL. And the Blazers are 32-40. And Chauncey's had back-to-back games against high opponents. And what's so funny is, like, there's high opponents that challenges win in the back-to-back baseball series, where I'm like, whoa, that's pretty intriguing. And I love Sean. Sean really brings a element here, and I'll leave it at this. Let me say this, Chad, since you're, fifth quarter, here and there. Let me say this. Do you use evaporated milk in your coffee?
No, I drink coffee black.
You don't use any milk?
No
Even
milk.
Evaporated milk?
No, I don't use evaporated milk. I don't use whole milk. I don't use 2% milk. I don't use almond milk. I drink it black.
Okay.
Well, how do you drink your coffee?
I agree.
Black?
You know what? It's a tough. Sometimes you got to mix it how you got to mix it.
No, you don't. You just got to drink it black. And give my best to Holly because you guys are awesome. No, coffee should be drank black. I like coffee black. That's how I do it. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. I love Americanos. I told you, did I mention this? I think I found the best cup of coffee in town. I've been to many different places, but I believe that the best cup of coffee I've had is from Coava. I hit the southeast location. I've been to, I go to Coava quite often. It's delicious. I think Coava makes the best. I think. There's a lot of good coffee shops in town, but man, Coava's dialed in. It's so good. It's so good. And I like Americanos. And the great thing about drinking black coffee and having a taste for it is that it's a great way to sample and get a feel for what is truly the best. I think Coava might be the best, but I'm on a mission to find it. And if there's something that's better, I'll find it. But right now, Coava is right up there near the top. In fact, if you know of a better place than Coava, just hit me up. Hit me up on social, at Chad and Rip City, or text me, 360-281-5473. That's what I want. You know what I want in life? I love coffee. And I'm a connoisseur, and I'm always looking for the best cup possible. So if you've got that, that's why I love the Southwest gate there at PDX. They got the Stumptown little coffee stand right next to the gate. So when I travel, I usually take the early flight out for wherever I'm going. I always get the multiple shot Americano from Stumptown. They make a good cup of coffee. But man, that co-op is good. I like barista. I think, was it Sarah? My hairstylist was telling me about this place. Was it Sarah Coffee? I can't remember the name. I got to ask her again. But yeah, I'm always looking for a good cup. But no, you don't need cream in coffee. A lot of these people that go to like Starbucks and stuff, they drink the foofy. What is that called? Foofy? They drink the foofy drinks. I'm not into that. How do you drink your coffee, Brendan? Black?
I've always never been a big coffee guy, so now that I don't get up in the mornings, I have not had a cup of coffee about 5 months.
I can't relate to that. All right,
Just different energy, boss.
When we come back, we got a great story involving my next guest, Brad Barbrick, who is a terrific man and a good friend and a longtime basketball coach. He loves the game. So we'll talk hoop with him, but also what in the heck was he doing on the Drew Barrymore show? You'll find out next on the Rip City Drive. All right, before we bring on our next guest, I want you to hear this. I came across this and I was like, wait, what? What in the world's going on here? The Drew Barrymore show, they had Jay Ellis on her program, and this is what took place. Take a listen.
We are here with the star of Top Gun Maverick, Insecure, and the latest show, Running Point, Jay Ellis, everybody. You had a coach.
Yeah, Brad Barbrick.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what did you learn from him, may I ask?
He was a great guy. He was a bit stoic at times. It was hard to get a smile out of him. But he was also, I mean, he's just a really great dude. Like, he's a dude who, like, still to this day, like, if he comes in town, he's like, Jay, Wendell, that's what he calls me, because that's my real name. Wendell, what are you up to? And I always try to go see him. If I'm ever in Portland, I try to see him. There's this really interesting thing that I think from him that I will say, I probably have never told him this, but I'm very grateful for, is although we were one team and we all had one goal, he understood that we were individuals and that we could not be coached the same necessarily or spoken to the same. And so I'm always really grateful for that and got to carry some of that into the show.
Well, Brad Barbarek, where are you?
And then they brought me out. Are you serious?
Yes, they did.
This is crazy.
Boy, how cool is that? And joining us right now is Brad Barbrick. Brad, coach, my friend, and long time no chat. How are you?
Hey, Chad. I'm great, man. I got to tell you, I actually, I was smiling again just listening to that. That was really fun.
Dude, it was so cool to see that. Now, take me behind the scenes. Like, how did that come out? I mean, how did that come to be? Did the Drew Barrymore show reach out to you and they tell you what they were looking to accomplish, or how did that come about?
Oh, it's a really great story. Ironically, one of my colleagues, I work at Shoot 360, which is a basketball skill development company, and I have a colleague, ironically, whose name is Brad Butterworth.
Mm-hmm.
And they reached out. One of the booking producers of the Drew Barrymore show reached out to Brad Butterworth via LinkedIn, and she said she couldn't get a hold of me, and so she got a hold of him, and he calls me and he says, "Do you know Drew Barrymore?" I said, "Well, no, but there's another part of the story that I'll tell you here in a moment that's kind of ironic, but so essentially what happened is that this producer emailed me. She got my email from Brad Butterworth, and I responded to her, and she said, "Hey, I'd like to get on a call with you in regards to your former player, Jay Ellis." And Jay, as he alluded to on that clip there, was Wendell J. Ellis, when he was a student athlete at Concordia University in Portland. And as most, Portland metropolitan people know, that Concordia University, ceased operations in 2020. I left there in 2019 after 25 years. So it is a little harder, to round up, former employees from there. And but she did, and she tracked me down, and she said, "Look, we'd like for you to make a video of your experience coaching Jay, and the reason is that he's getting ready to debut on a new Netflix series called Running Point, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, Running Point has been the top-rated show on Netflix here, and of course it's a loosely based story of the Lakers. Of course, in the show, they're called the LA Waves, and Jay Ellis plays the coach, and Kate Hudson plays the owner of the team, very, very similar, to Jeannie Buss in the current Lakers ownership. And so they thought it would be fun, for me to do a video and show that. Well, as I talked to the producer, I was telling her some stories about Jay, And then I said, ironically, I said, my wife, Tawny, gets told all the time that she looks like Drew Barrymore. And she goes, no way. And I'm like, yeah. And I said, in fact, at Halloween, we have dressed up as characters from some of Drew's movies, specifically 50 First Dates.
Awesome.
Which Adam Sandler and, of course, Drew Barrymore, and then also The Wedding Singer, which is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Great film.
Yeah, and, of course, my wife, she loves Halloween, and I was always kind of giving her a hard time about spending so much money on costumes for Halloween. Well, she told me, she goes, you will never be able to give me a hard time again about Halloween costumes, because it got you a trip to New York City on the Drew Barrymore show. So the part that's really fun is at the conclusion of the interview, you know, with Jay, after he was so surprised, and I got to tell some great stories about Jay. You know, I said, Drew, I have to tell you this. I said, my wife is a Drew Barrymore lookalike, and, you know, we have some pictures. Well, then they showed the pictures, you know, up on the screen so that the TV audience could see them. And I've really gotten a lot of, you know, fun comments from people, you know, Jay's teammates when he played and some of his classmates, and, you know, saying, wow, what a great story, and what a unique and ironic tie-in that, you know, your wife looks like Drew Barrymore.
That's so good.
Yeah,
that's so good. We're talking with
it was super fun, Chad. Just a really neat experience. And Wendell Jay is he's just he's a phenomenal person. Graduated in 3 years from Concordia. He was the student body president in 2002, 2003. That particular year, we were really, really good. We were co-champions of the Cascade Collegiate Conference that year. And, you know, Jay didn't get to play a lot. We had a really nice team, and I brought him in at the end of the season and, you know, talking about his role for, you know, his upcoming final year, his senior year. And he said, well, look, Coach, he goes, I love my time here. He goes, but, you know, I've been loading up on my classes and credits each semester, and I'm going to graduate. So he graduated in 3 years, and he was doing some modeling at the time with Nike. We used to have several of our players that did some stuff with Nike in those days. We were part of being the NAIA. You know, we didn't have the restrictions that you have in the NCAA, and so our players were able to do some things with Nike, and he got in. He was actually one of the models in the catalog, the Nike apparel catalog that they send out, you know, their big catalog. And so when he graduated, he went to Los Angeles, and he started, you know, he did some more modeling. He started taking acting classes. And a really funny part of the story, Chad, is I called him up because I was flying to L.A. to do some recruiting. So this would have been like two years after he graduated, so 2005. 20 years ago. And I said, hey, I'm coming to LA. And he was working at a really nice hotel in Beverly Hills. And I said, hey, can you get me a deal at your hotel? And he goes, yeah, let me see what I can do, Coach. And so he got me like absolutely the nicest room I ever stayed in while I was recruiting as the Concordia head coach, which I was for 25 years. That was definitely the nicest room I ever stayed in, and he got me, you know, his employee discount, and then we went to dinner, and you know, he said, hey, I'm taking acting classes, I'm starting to get, you know, some gigs here and there, and that was kind of the start of it. About 2005, you know, he was in some commercials, and then his first really big break was when he played the quarterback on the show The Game, which was on BET. And then of course a lot of people will know him from the HBO series Insecure.
Yes.
That really kind of rocketed him, you know, and then of course when he got the gig on on Top Gun Maverick, that's just, that's one of the all-time largest grossing films in the history of movies.
Yeah,
So,
that's legendary status. What's it like for you? Because you coached for 25 years and you develop these relationships with players that are, very much like your family, your sons. How much pleasure do you get from staying connected with them over the years when you have a chance to do something like you did with Wendell on the Drew Barrymore show and continue to find out how they're doing and how they develop as time goes on?
Chad, the greatest thing, and, when you coach at the small college level, it's very similar to being a high school coach, except you have to recruit. But I had teaching responsibilities the majority of my teaching and coaching career at Concordia. And the greatest joy was, being around young men, building those relationships, and then, keeping those relationships after they become alumni. It's just so gratifying. I have to tell you this story about Jay because it's just so great. When he got the part for Payback in Top Gun Maverick, he called his dad, and this is the part that many people don't know about Wendell J. Ellis, is that his dad was a career Air Force guy, and Jay went to 11 different schools in his 13 years of schooling.
Wow.
And his senior year, you'll appreciate this because it's from your home state of Oklahoma. He was going to school at Metro Christian Academy in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he was a all-state kid. They had a really good team, and his high school coach was Brooks Thompson.
Really?
Okay? Do you know that name?
I do.
Yeah, played in the league, played about 7 or 8 years in the NBA, and that was part of the reason I called him. He played for an NBA, ex-NBA player. He was an all-state kid, and his dad, had retired from the Air Force. So when Jay sent me his information, he sent me an email and he sent me a VHS tape. This was 2000. And, I looked at it and I thought, this kid's 6'4", he's all state. He plays for a, ex-NBA player. So I called him and I said, we typically don't recruit guys out of Tulsa. and he said, well, Coach, my dad's retired military. He actually works for American Airlines. I can fly out, standby. And he did.
Wow.
And so he came out and he was awesome. He's so polished and extreme, he's a great student. He just fit in, great at our university. And so fast forward years later, and he tells his dad, I got the parts of Payback in, Top Gun Maverick. And Jay's all excited. And his dad says, Top Gun? That's Navy. Son, we're an Air Force family.
That's so good.
Yeah. And I thought, and I said, was your dad serious? He goes, oh, he was kidding, but I think a lot of them was serious too. There's such a Air Force and Navy have a pretty good rivalry anyway. Just those types of stories that your ex-players share with you. It's just so fun to be a part of that stuff.
I've been wanting to ask you this. I know that you're doing a lot of work you enjoy with Shoot 360, but have you found something to replicate the competition you got from coaching and being in games and getting a chance to go up against other teams? Or is that just something you can't get unless you're in that arena?
Well, Chad, I have a young son, Landon. I have grown children, and then I have a young son, Landon, who is 7 years old, and so
he's a good-looking boy, by the way. Good-looking son.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he made the cut. In fact, when he watched the clips or saw the segment of the Drew Barrymore show, my wife asked him, "Hey, did you like seeing Dad on TV?" And of course, he had seen his picture on TV, and he goes, "I like seeing me on TV."
I love that response.
Oh yeah, so that's what there's my enjoyment, is that I'm getting to coach his teams. I've coached his team now 4 years in a row. So this year my coaching chops were built on 6 and 7 year olds, and I think it was our second game. We got beat by about 15 points, and my wife and my older kid said, "Hey, nice work, Dad. As a former college coach, you just got worked by 3 dads."
That's so good. But isn't it nice, though, I would imagine, with your experience, because of your grown children, to get a chance to do it again with your youngest son? Do you find yourself more patient or more understanding because you've been down that path before? Is it more enjoyable in some ways?
You know what, Chad? It is, what I really appreciate, and it really gets back to your original question, is I get to spend more time. I was so busy coaching my team, and being a college coach is the recruiting. You never turn it off. You're always on, and I just love that I have the opportunity to coach my youngest son's teams and be there and watch that. And I certainly was there for my older kids as much as possible, but not nearly as much as I would have liked to have been there. And so that's the nice part of it. But yeah, I definitely miss it. I don't miss the transfer portal and the NIL stuff. Even at the small college level, that stuff is all filtered down. It's just a different world now in college basketball. I still love it. I just absolutely, love this time of year with the tournament stuff going on, and I eat it up. It's my favorite form of entertainment. But
of the coaches,
I don't miss. Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, of the colleagues you have, guys that are still coaching, what is the biggest challenge for them with the portal opening up and you still got the tournament going on? That's crazy.
Boy, that's a we could do a whole segment on that, Chad. I was just had a really great conversation with a longtime Division I assistant. He's out of it now, and one of the things that he said was, the schools that have the resources are going to continue to, get the best players, because now on the recruiting call, it's, well, what can you offer me?
Yeah, how much?
It's not so much about the education; it's the money. That's first and foremost now, and so it's really changed everything. Watching the NCAA tournament. And this is another discussion. I feel like, some of the, McNeese State won and not as many Cinderellas, or some of the, what we call the low majors or mid-major programs, are winning games. We don't really have any so-called Cinderellas in the Sweet 16, and we got 7 teams from the SEC in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Which is great. And I still love that, but I also like some of that drama with some of those, mid-major, low-major programs.
Well, what we're seeing, we'll have to give it a couple more years, but what we could be seeing right now is where guys like Brad Barbrick at smaller schools who are developing players, and then once other teams at bigger conferences take notice, they're able to come in and offer stuff that these smaller colleges can't. They gobble them up.
That is absolutely 100%. I think back on, we were really fortunate. We were able to attract really good players, and, our relationship goes all the way back 25 years when you were at K-Band.
Yeah, way back.
And they were broadcasting our games, and my Shoot 360 boss and colleague Craig Moody and I had a weekly radio show at K-Van, talking about college basketball, and we had some, players. I think back on, man, they would have been snatched up by a lot of Division I programs. They'd have been offered money.
Yeah.
We had some really good, talented guys. So I definitely don't miss that. But it's going to be interesting to see how the college game evolves in the world of NIL and the world of the transfer portal. It's just a different type of recruiting environment.
Well, I'll tell you what we need to do. One, we should get you back on the show sometime in the very near future to further get into that discussion of the transfer portal and the NIL, because with your experience, I think it would be great to talk about that. But, Coach, you know this, man. I love you, and I'm just glad. It tickled me pink to be able to see you on the Drew Barrymore show with Jay. I thought that was awesome, man. It was great, and I saw you, and I was like, dude, that is so cool, and I couldn't wait to get the story, so I'm just glad you're here to share it. What a great story that is.
Well, Chad, you are my man. You have been so good to me over the years. Love you right back, and I'd appreciate so much the opportunity to come on and share. It's been really, really fun, and Jay has just been so gracious to me about it. You know, he's been really good to me and spent time with me in New York. You know, and you know, love to come on with you anytime. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on and share some of that.
Okay, well, I'll reach out in the near future and just promise me you'll come back on to talk about the portal and the NIL and more of what you're doing at Shoot 360. I think that'd be great.
Would love to.
All right.
Reach out anytime, Chad. Thanks so much.
You're the man. Coach Barbrick right there. Brad Barbrick, what a good dude he is, and how much fun was that? Getting a chance to go out to New York and be on the Drew Barrymore show. Awesome. And he really is one of the good guys. He was there in the very beginning, back when I was I'm a nobody now, but going way back to where I first got my start over at K-Van 1550 in Vancouver. I was always hanging out with John Phillips and trying to get as much experience doing whatever. And I met Brad Barbrick for the first time in that studio, and we became friends. And what I appreciated about Brad is that even though I was young and didn't know what I was doing, he always treated me like an equal, and we would have conversation, and we became friends over time. I mean, I've always said this, but one of what I enjoy most about this job is just the people that you come in contact with and have a chance to build relationships with. But that's pretty sweet when you coach for 25 years and you get a chance to be a part of all your players' lives and see what they have become and what stories they have. So that's good. All right, big thanks to Brad Barbrick. We'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. All right, really nice to catch up with Brad Barbrick. I hadn't spoken with him in a while, so it was great to catch up. And I hate that when I lose touch with people I care about because life, you get busy. And he's one of those guys where, we touch base every once in a while, but it's great to catch up with him and find out what's going on. 25 years as a coach, that's crazy. Michael Holton's son played for him, too, out there at Concordia. So there you have it. Brad Barbrick, big thanks to the Godfather, Dwight James, for coming on. And we have what? Opening day tomorrow? Is that right? Is it tomorrow? When's opening day, Brendan?
Good question. I actually don't know off the top of my head.
I got too many sports going on in my dome.
Yeah,
right
I know.
now.
Same way, boss.
Okay, let's see what we got cracking. Yeah, Thursday. Tomorrow.
There you go.
Opening day. I'm looking forward to that. I saw something today where I think Mookie Betts, he's expected to be ready to go. Was it Dwight telling me that? Now, how is he going to be ready to go? Like, that guy's a gamer. I thought he just went through a 2-week stretch where he couldn't eat anything and he had dropped like 20 pounds. I don't know. I'm all on board watching the Dodgers this year just to see how many games they can win. I'd like to see history made. It'd be great to see them motivated to get over that 116 mark. I think their win total set at 104. The Braves and the Yankees also high up on the list in terms of odds-on favorites to win the championship. And then we'll see if the Mariners do what they always do, which is disappoint. I hope that's not the case. And I saw where the Dodgers, they're coming up to Seattle, but it's like right at the wrong time of the year. It's like it's September. That's stupid. The last time, I love going up to Seattle for a set, but not during football season. Dang it. My daughter's going to be up there next week checking out some baseball. They do have some good deals, early season baseball up there in Seattle, but it's going to be fun. I want to see how it goes. But, yeah, the Dodgers should be unbelievable this year, assuming they stay healthy, which they probably won't. They'll lose all their pitchers, and they'll have to do some patchwork stuff throughout the course of the year. But if they stay healthy, they got a chance to make a run at history, I think, with that lineup and the money that they spend, which is substantial. But Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman's my favorite guy in baseball. I love everything about him. And there you have it. Mookie Betts is cool, too. And I like Teoscar. They got some cool dudes on the roster. But the Braves should be good. Yeah, it's going to be fun. But the Mariners, I hate it when they do series like that. But, yeah, they're taking a train up, I think. They should get to ride for free. They got some type of special deal on the train, the Amtrak. I think it's basically nothing for active students. So it's very cheap, but Kayla's going to ride up on the train. I do love the train. I love riding up to Seattle on the train. I've done it multiple times for football. I've done it for baseball. It's just very relaxing. I get irritated too easy in the car now with traffic. Usually it's people. Like, what irritates me the most? I would say it's probably people in the left lane going slower than the posted speed limit. That probably drives me the most insane. But then I got flipped off the other day. The guy double-barreled me. So I went over to cover the state tournament there at Child Center. And the parking lot, if you've been over there, it's a little bit dicey. And it's very, it's tight. It's very small, so you got to be very careful. But they got the one-ways going. And I started down a one-way, and I was going the proper direction. And this car was going the wrong direction. So they had to put it in reverse and back all the way down to be able to turn around. And I wasn't mad at them. I'm just like, yeah, you got to back up, man. Because there's not enough room to go around, right? That you got parked cars on either side of you. So it took about 2 minutes for this buffoon to back his car down without hitting other cars. And when they finally got to the end where they could turn around, the guy in the passenger seat gave me the double barrel. And I'm like, why are you flipping me off? I didn't do anything. It's not my fault that your boy driving the rig is an idiot, all right, for going the wrong way. See that arrow that you just backed over? That would indicate you're going the wrong direction. But you're going to flip me the bird. Double barrel style. Whatever. I don't care. All right. Big thanks to our guests today, Brad Barbrick, Godfather, and Sean Hyken. Tomorrow, we'll have a Rip City Drive at 3, game day at 5, and then tip off with the Sacramento Queens at 7 here on 620 Rip City Radio. And, of course, every game streams live on our free iHeartRadio app. Big thanks to Brendan Slaughter for engineering the program. You guys have a good night, and I will talk to you later.